In this video, you'll learn how to export images from Lightroom so they can be shared with others, sent out for printing, and otherwise to be put to use outside of Lightroom. I'm in the library module now. I have one image selected. I know that because I can look down here on my film strip and it says 8 photos, 1 selected. If I want to select more images and export more images, I'm going to select Command or Control A, and now all of my images in the film strip are selected and ready to be exported outside of Lightroom. To export, I can either select Export here from the left side panel, or I can come up to File, Export, and you can see there's other export options here as well. Export with Previous will export the images I've selected now using the previous settings from earlier. Export with Preset, well, you can see I have a choice of various Lightroom presets, and if I had created any user presets, they would show up here as well. I'm going to simply select Export because I want the dialog window to appear with all the options, which will not appear if I either select Export with Previous or Export with Preset. So I'll select Export, and now you see I have all my various options right in front of me. Here are the presets that showed up earlier. I'm going to start up here by exporting to a hard drive. I could also export straight to email or to a CD or DVD. As far as export location goes, I'm going to go to a specific folder. I can choose that folder here. I'll keep it there. Choose. I'm going to give it a name in a subfolder. I'm not going to add it to the catalog. And existing files, I'll ask what to do if there's any discrepancy. As far as renaming goes, I can choose custom renaming sequences, or I can just keep file name. If I want, I can create my own custom renaming nomenclature using the file name template editor, but I'm not going to do that now. So this shows me exactly what the text will be when I export. There's no video, so in this case, there's no video, so I won't have any options there. Under File Settings, I can choose from JPEG to PSD, which is the Photoshop file format, TIFF, DNG, and Original. I'm not sure why I'd want to export an original because I already have an original file on my hard drive, but that is an option. So each one of these image format choices will bring up different options. For example, if you export to a TIFF, you have various options that will be different than, say, to a JPEG. But frankly, I'm most oftentimes exporting to a JPEG, so let's stay with that. Color space, sRGB, that's the color space of monitors. That's where a lot of my images are going. It's also a color space used by a lot of desktop printers. But since I'm printing straight from my Lightroom print module, that's usually sRG is what I'm going to choose because most of my pictures are going to go to a monitor. As far as quality goes, this is going to determine the file size of my JPEG and the quality. I'll go ahead and I could leave it at 100, which is a high quality JPEG. If I reduce the quality a little bit, I'll lower the file size, lower the quality, but probably not by a lot. So I could drop that down a little bit safely and just make the file size a little smaller. I could also just tell Lightroom I only want it to go to a certain file size. So as far as image sizing goes, now this is where we can get it a little bit more into a complex discussion. I'll try to keep this simple. If you choose to resize, well, first of all, you don't have to resize if you don't want to. And if you don't select this, it'll just send out the entire resolution of your image file from Lightroom. However, today with these 18 megapixel digital cameras, you might want to resize your images down, especially if you're going to send this off to someone for them to look at on their monitor. You don't need all those pixels. So let's select Resize to Fit. Now you can see there's different ways of coming up with the dimensions. So I'm going to start with width and height. I happen to use this a lot. So what width and height is doing, specifically, it doesn't care about the image orientation, whether it's a landscape or vertical, but it's going to make sure that the width that you specify, the image is never going to be any larger than that particular width or any higher than the height. So if I put 2000 by 2000, I'm going to be safe in terms of my pictures going out into the world and being viewed on most any monitor. It won't be exactly 2000 by 2000, but it'll be within those constraints. So as far as dimension goes, dimension is similar to width and height, but it doesn't really care whether it's horizontal or vertical measurements. If I have multiple images, some are horizontal, some are vertical, by choosing dimensions, they're all going to come out the same size. So it's handy if you have vertical and horizontal images, you want to be all the same image size. Okay, so then the next option is long edge, and a long edge is just biased to the longest side, regardless whether it's a horizontal or vertical measurement. And then short edge is biased to the short edge, regardless if it's a horizontal or vertical measurement. The last option, megapixels, I'm not sure how I would use that. I have to think about that. That's not useful for me. But I'm going to go up here and leave it at width 2000 by 2000. Resolution at, I'll leave it at 72. It doesn't really mean anything. And then I won't enlarge because everything mostly is going to be shrunken. Most of the time it's too large coming down in size. Okay, so under output sharpening, if I select that, I can choose whether it's going to the screen. And a lot of these images that I'm resizing or exporting from Lightroom are going to the screen. So I'll leave that at screen. And the amount, I can choose low, standard, high. It's really just going to depend on my taste. I'd have to look at it afterwards and see if it's good or not. In terms of metadata, I always include copyright information. I have that built in as a template so that when I import my images into Lightroom, it's already tagging them with my name and copyright. And it'll place that on the lower left side of the image automatically. And very small, but it'll always be there. If I want it bigger and placed in a different part of the image, I select watermark and use a watermark that I've created. So that gives me more control over where the watermark is going to go. And you can find out where it's going to go by looking up under Edit Watermark. And you can see in this case, it's also going to the lower left side. But I could have placed it anywhere on the image, depending on how I made that personalized watermark. All right, so in terms of post-processing, I always select Show in Finder, but you have other options as well. Show in Finder, just when it's done, it will open up the Finder, and there are my images, because I'm usually ready to send them out and share them. I want to have them at my fingertips, and this is a really good way to go immediately to the pictures when they're all done, when the processing is done. If I have come up with settings that I think I'll use over and over again, I'll select Add over here on the left, and I'll create a user preset. I'll give it a name, select Create, and it'll appear over here on the left and always be available to me, either from here, the export dialog window, or over under File, as I showed you earlier. Okay, so when you're all ready to go, you make sure that you have all your files ready to go. Up here it tells you how many files are being exported. I'll go ahead and select Export. Now look here, we're back in the library module. This is what's really nice about Lightroom. I can start working again within Lightroom, even though Lightroom is working in the background to process these images. It's converting the images, the original image, it's merging it with all the instructions from the develop module. It's basically making a save as version. It's not touching the original. And you can see it, the status bar, it's telling me what it's doing, and I can stop it at any time by selecting this little X here. But it's telling me what's happening in the background. I can still continue working. And here are the pictures. Because I told it to open up in the Finder, and they're all exported. They're all ready to go. It's just Lightroom's exporting capabilities are fantastic, and it's so much control over the way your images go out into the world. And remember, above all, remember that this has never touched your original file. Your original file has always remained the same, and all you've been doing is creating a derivative, or a copy, if you will, with all these particular Lightroom settings. It's easy, it's very efficient, and I think you'll agree with me. It just really makes Lightroom just a fantastic place to work in.